this chapter president came up with this on his own. He decided that instead of sitting in the front of the room during chapter meeting, complaining about people not coming to whatever thing or engaging in whatever thing, he stood up. He was like, hey, we did this thing. This is what brotherhood looked like this week. And these few people in this large chapter decided to participate. And he gave them a discount on their dues for that semester. And he's correct. Jaw drop. Other people in the jail would say, what? How is that fair?
Welcome to Heard Around the Phire, everybody. What have you heard? This is a segment where we dive into the conversations and musings that we have heard in our everyday lives. It might be something that someone's dropped in a chat in one of our digital trainings. It might be something that maybe you've heard in a training where you've been present with people and you hear students talking to one another. Maybe you overheard it walking past someone at a conference, or maybe one of our partners is a campus advisor and they've shared like, gosh, my students say this all the time. I don't know what to do with it. So no matter where we've heard these little musings, these little quips, we want to provide insights and valuable perspectives on growth to help students maybe combat this, to move past these things. So let's dive right in. We had been talking a little bit about we join in certain ways, but it's not just about joining. It's also about, we might be able to get people to recruit. We might be able to get people to join and we recruit really well, but we've got some chapters that just kill it at recruitment. But as their members progress through the membership experience, as they get older, what do we do with that? How do we keep people? We can recruit fine. I don't need to be told how to recruit. We're good there. How do we keep our members? So what do we say to that? What do we say? How do we help people who, might have said this or they're complaining about this? What do you think?
Yeah. When I think about retaining your older members, I think about something that Becca said earlier, finding out what they need, right? Because maybe that first year, second year is like, I'm still having fun at these pottery painting sisterhood events. I'm still having fun at these karaoke nights that we're having. And the third year and the fourth year is like, I'm about to get a job. Like, I need to be employed after this. I need professional development. And so are we making, yes, having fun sisterhood events, but what are we doing to make sure that you as chapter leaders understand what your third and fourth year members need, right? I remember in my chapter experience having a resume building class that we took together as third and fourth years. And we had somebody come in that was on campus completely free, something that is already offered to the third and fourth years at your university. You probably have it at your school as well. And we just had them come in 30, 45 minutes and talk to us about interview skills, resume building skills, all these different kinds of things. And we all left that event like, finally, we're not painting a succulent again. Like, finally, we're not watching The Bachelor, which those things are so fun. Love those things still. You don't necessarily grow out of that. But we just needed so much more. And that made us feel, and it made us feel really seen and heard as well. Like, not only did it help us grow professionally, but it was like, okay, look, finally, like the VP of membership understands that this is what we've been looking for. This is what we really need. So think about those things and just ask them, right? I think a lot of times we sit in those exec meetings, and we're like, we run the shots here, we're planning the events, and we just didn't ever ask our members what they wanted and what they need to feel like they still belong in this organization, right?
Yeah. Saf, I want to go off what you were just saying for a second, because I feel like I always make this reference, and it's Life's What You Make It, You Better Make It Rock by Hannah Montana, everybody. I hope you all know and understand the reference, but so like in that song, Hannah Montana is literally singing about how like life is going to be like all up to you. You have to be the one that makes it extravagant and great and incredible. You have to make it rock yourself. And so often as chapter leaders, as chapters, we apply that to our membership, and we're like, membership's what you make it. So it's your responsibility to make it rock. It's your responsibility to make it good. And so we often pull back after initiation, after the new member experience. So we've had recruitment, we've really sold this great product. We're like, buy this Maserati, it's gonna be great. It goes fast and it's beautiful and it's gonna have a long lasting value. And then they get into their new member period and we're like, yeah, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. Like, we're getting it ready for you in the back. Like, it's shipping right now. You'll have it in a little bit. And then you initiate and you're like, yeah, this is so great. And then all of a sudden the retention efforts stop because it's like, all right, like, we've secured you here. You're here. You're good. Now it's your job. We've given you tools, maybe, and it's your decision now what you want to do with this experience. And we so often forget to actually cater that experience to and like put effort into retaining and engaging our members in intentional ways. I like to say that we start using the word sisterhood, brotherhood as a verb, when in reality, it's not. It is not something like, we're not going to a sisterhood. Like, sisterhood's not an event. Sisterhood is something we engage in. Brotherhood is something we engage in. Siblinghood is something we engage in. We can't just throw an event and like say that our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our siblinghood is fixed and it's beautiful and it's so strong, right? But it's something that we have to feel and engage in and put work into every single day. The same way that recruitment is not just an event. It's not like we use recruitment as this verb, but it's really something that we have to put effort into and really tailor and create relationships in sisterhood, brotherhood, siblings, the same exact thing. So I think it's shifting the perspective away from, we're going to put a ton of effort into, it's oftentimes the beginning of membership. And then the end of membership, we like to throw stuff at our seniors. Here's a senior banquet. Here's this, here's that. But we so often forget about the middle portion of our members, our sophomores, juniors, second, like they just get left out because we're like, you're going to figure out for the next 2 years, you got a lot when you were a freshman, you're going to get a lot when you're a senior, make the other 2 years worth it yourself. So I think it's about shifting our perspective away from they'll figure it out into how do we intentionally retain and engage our members in a way that's going to work for them.
I love that.
Something I've seen work for helping to shift that perspective, Becca, is sometimes our members just need us to point out, to your point, like that sisterhood or brotherhood or siblinghood is happening.
Yeah.
Sometimes in order to shift the perspective, because we think it is that isolated event or that we just need leaders that are willing to kind of tell stories really well and point it out. Like, hey, I noticed sisterhood looking like this week over here in this way. And that's a very different way to lead than maybe some of the leaders that I've experienced even about my own home chapter back in the day. Or I actually did, I learned this from maybe it was like a year out of college. I was visiting a chapter, and this chapter president came up with this on his own. He decided that instead of sitting in the front of the room during chapter meeting, complaining about people not coming to whatever thing or engaging in whatever thing, he stood up and he was like, hey, we did this thing. This is what brotherhood looked like this week. And these few people in this large chapter decided to participate. And he gave them a discount on their dues for that semester. And correct, jaw drop. Other people in the job, they say, "What? How is that fair? Where did that?" I just want to celebrate the extra effort that these individuals. And all of a sudden, people start wanting to engage in the wait a minute, and so like leading instead of with like shame and challenge and frustration, just being a good storyteller, pointing out where brotherhood or siblinghood or sisterhood is happening, how juniors and seniors who are engaged, like what the benefits are for them, having them speak to maybe a moment that week that was like really impactful for them to get to spend time with one of the newer members and then celebrating that. It calls people into the culture that you're trying to create. Or if you sit in the front of the room, you're going to continue to get actually people to quit. People will say like, look, I don't have time for this. I don't really see the benefits. And then I'm going to come once a week to a meeting where you just beg me and yell at me and tell me I'm not good enough. I'd just rather not be here then. And so instead, like choosing celebration, choosing storytelling, pointing it out. Those are a couple of things I've seen like work to help start to shift that perspective.
I love that. Those are all really great thoughts and perspectives on, oh gosh, after we get them, we got to keep them. And it's about recruiting them always, not just recruiting them once. You know, we're recruiting them into this entire experience so that when they graduate, they also want to be involved and to give back. That's the way I've always looked at it. And so those are some really great, the celebration, the making them feel loved and wanted and like they're still a part of it. And we're not necessarily catering to their wants, but maybe to their needs. Like, what do they need right now in this moment? So thanks for sharing, y'all. I'd like to shift into how do we help some of our members who are recruiters who might not feel confident in talking to people. They feel embarrassed in texting their friends and asking their friends to join. Having an initial conversation without feeling pushy. You know, I've overheard some of these things of like, I don't want to text my friends. That feels weird. Like, when they have joined already, or like when they have signed up, like, gosh, there's this underlying feeling, and I don't know if it's a confidence or what it is, but I've heard it often of, I feel embarrassed texting my friends, or I just don't want to say this because I don't want to feel too salesy. And so how do you help someone, you know, you talked about storytelling, RJ, like how do you help someone share their story that then makes them feel confident and I will text my friend. Like, how do we do that? What do we do in that way to help people? What advice do you have?
Yeah, I saw this a lot, like Saf said, when we were, I helped start new chapters for about a period of 5 years. And I got to help start like 20 plus chapters across the country. And sometimes we would go to a new community and the IFC, the council that we would affiliate with, would say something like, look, I don't think there's a lot of people here. Well, actually, the first time I ever started a chapter was the University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, go Blazers. And I remember having a conversation with someone who was IFC president at the time, member of Delta Sigma Phi, who's still a friend of mine. And I said to this person, I said, you know, if we were able to recruit X number of people, what would you call success? Or what would you call success? Now, this was in the spring, and they had a culture at UAB at the time of like, people don't traditionally join in the spring. And so my friend said, you know, I think if you could get 8, if you get 8 people in the spring as a new org, I mean, I think that'd be a firm foundation for you all to, you know, get ready in the summer and come into the fall and be able to recruit. And we got 38 in about 4 weeks. And it was a fun experience to actually meet people. And one of the questions we'd ask is like, hey, just curious, like, why hasn't fraternity been something that's been on your radar here before? And like 3/4 of the amount of time, y'all, someone says back to me, I was never recruited. But I would go to my friends, again, on ISC, I would tell them this. And they would go, what do you mean, RJ? These guys that you found, how the heck do you mean that they haven't been recruited? Because we put up the flyer, we posted on the socials, we did everything that we thought we were supposed to. We put the tables out there for like a week in front of they had every opportunity. And the 38 young men we found at the time, who were impressive guys, just said, yeah, but nobody ever talked to me. Nobody ever invited me. No one ever recruited me. Like, we can bring our own assumptions a lot of times into these conversations, these recruitment conversations. And it becomes almost like a practice, y'all, like an art and a science to, how do I set down my expectations, come into this with the intention of just trying to make as many friends as possible. And then from those friends, some people will start to get a little curious naturally about what this fraternity or sorority thing's really about. And then those are little doors, micro, you know, like opportunities, glimpses that you can step through and be the person that they need in that moment to kind of essentially be their guide. I say that oftentimes, that when fraternity recruitment and sorority recruitment is done well, it doesn't center us as members as the hero. It actually centers the potential member or the new friend that we're making as the hero. And we just get to come alongside and be their guide.
That's super great. I love that tangible, like personal lived experience too. And I wonder how many people would say that they weren't recruited. You know, like if of your friends, if you didn't text your friends, or, you know, and then your organization still needs people to join and you're embarrassed to text them. And then later you're like, why didn't you join a fraternity? I thought you didn't want to. And they're like, I was never recruited. Like, I wonder how many situations are existing out there in the world right now, within our own organizations that we're supporting, where students are I don't want to text them. I don't think they're interested. I'm embarrassed, or I'm a little nervous. I think that question that you asked, RJ, why have you, like, what was the specific question you asked?
Why haven't you found a fraternity sorority? Like, why haven't you chosen to join a fraternity before, specifically at U of B, because we were starting a chapter of a fraternity. And yeah, I think it's like 3/4 of the amount of time. And we do surveying now too at Phired Up and ask that question pretty regularly. And that holds pretty consistent. About 3/4 of the amount of time, the number one answer isn't that they don't like us, or that they don't like what we're selling, or that they don't think it's valuable, or they think it's some other like horrible thing about us. 3/4 of the amount of time, someone just says, I was never recruited. And it bums me out. It's also why I love when juniors and seniors join. When I meet someone that's like, I just joined, I mean, graduating in whatever, but I joined later, or maybe they don't follow the stereotypical traditional path to membership. I love that so much because it continues to prove the point. Like, man, gosh, I wish we could have gotten to you sooner at some point. Like, as soon as you were qualified for membership, I wish someone would have been able to be that friend that you needed. But I love meeting junior, senior people that just maybe didn't take even actually alumni initiative. I love meeting people that still found a home in fraternity sorority, but didn't follow that path. It just continues to inspire me to try to be that friend for more people earlier.
Yeah, that non-traditional path. That's also something that I think, let's do one more, because I've heard this, and I've heard like, okay, so I feel like we have all the names on our list that we can. And then oftentimes when we dig deeper, it's first-year students. What about sophomores? What about juniors? What about seniors? So when people are like, we've got all the names, and then we open up that can of worms that it's not. What about our transfer students or non-traditional students? Like, there's other students out there that maybe we haven't asked or have never been asked, but we're assuming that they have. So what advice would you give someone if they're like, juniors and seniors, they're past their prime, like, we're not going to recruit them? So, RJ, you opened up that pathway. I'd love to talk about that real quick. Like, how would you encourage someone? How would you talk to someone? How should they recruit someone who's a junior and senior, who's an upperclassman?
I think for me, it's helping our chapter leaders, our chapter members really grasp the concept of fraternity and sorority is not just a 4-year experience. I think recently, especially, I've been seeing a lot of our members are just really like, yeah, once I graduate, I am done. Like, it's over, right? And I see I look back at members of fraternity and sorority that joined 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and the love, like, I've met chapter advisors and folks like advising chapters at 40, 50, 60 years old. Like, they've never lost the love of fraternity, of sorority. And I'm like, how do we get that into our members? How do we help them conceptualize the idea that fraternity and sorority is not just 4 years? I think when we're in college, it's really easy to only, like, we're looking at our 4 years, that we're chunking out time. And so often as humans, that's just how we view life. We naturally chunk time together. And so it's hard in our collegiate experience to look past the 4 years, especially as freshmen and sophomores looking ahead. And like, if I'm a freshman or sophomore and somebody's like, why don't you just recruit a junior or senior? And you're like, what do you mean? They're so far ahead of me in life, and we're not that similar, and they're not going to want to join because I wanted to join as a freshman and sophomore. They we can't conceptualize why an upperclassman would want to join. But I think there's so many benefits to membership that just exceed joining as a freshman or sophomore that you get as a junior or senior. It's the connections, it's the relationships, it's the friendships that carry on past graduation. It's the opportunities that arise post-graduation, the job opportunities, the alumni volunteer opportunities where you get to go on. I met Sapphire through a postgraduate alumni opportunity of our organization, and I would have never met Sapphire if I hadn't joined the organization, and that happened post-graduation. So I think it's helping our collegians conceptualize, our members conceptualize that fraternity and sorority is not just a 4-year experience. And so when a junior joins, when a senior joins, and maybe they're only there for a semester, 2 or 3, they're not missing out or lacking a fraternity or sorority experience. They're actually gaining something that's going to last them a lifetime, even if they gained it a little bit later than some of our freshmen or our sophomores.
I mean, Becca, that's also just a real life lesson. What you're saying is like, well, I mean, what you're saying is like not centering and not normalizing our own lived experience and recognizing that other people come from, and again, this can translate, and this is going to hit for recruitment, but it hits across, you know, really the whole spectrum of society. Not believing, and I love to travel. It's like something that I really love to do. And one of the reasons I love to travel so much is because just constantly feeling like I need to challenge my definition of normal. It can become really easy for us to, again, center ourselves, make us the hero of the story, and not realize that there's a lot of other people living a lot of other stories, and they're heroes too. And we don't need to make everyone follow my path or your path, or getting the opportunity to kind of like deconstruct that a little bit of, man, this is fraternity and sorority really does span. There's so many paths to it, or at least there should be, and there should be so many paths through it, and so many opportunities to be able to share it with a lot more people than we share it with today.
I agree. I have several friends who have joined sororities as alumni members because they've in the field of higher education, and it was just an opportunity because of their jobs. And I think that some of our organizations do a really great job of leveraging their graduate and alumni networks to continue to grow their organizations at that level, you know, and I don't think that all of our organizations tap into that. And then from there, we think about some of our organizations truly only recruit sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so this idea that we can only recruit first-year students, I think, is a very small subset of our organizations. And they're in this tunnel mindset of this is the only way that we can recruit. And how do we challenge them to expand beyond that? We see some of these other organizations that thrive by getting juniors and seniors who have truly established themselves already on campus. You can see their leadership. You can see their dedication and their commitment. Maybe they're an ROTC, maybe they're a student athlete, you know, maybe they've found their way into the honors college and you see their tried and true experience. Gosh, that would be a member that I would want. And so I think that we do ourselves a huge disservice when we only focus on one demographic. And so, you know, when I've worked with our CBFO organizations as a campus professional, and I worked with their graduate chapters who help support them, you know, this network that they have is incomparable. And it's something that I was always a little jealous of gosh, I wish that our organizations had that same level of support in that way. And so I think that how we challenge people and how we get them to move beyond this, we can only recruit one, you know, small group of students. I think it's bringing in some of what you mentioned, Becca, and some of what you did too, RJ, as well. So there's so much opportunity out there and we don't want to just limit ourselves. So great. Well, I would say that this segment was sponsored by Social Excellence, talking about building relationships, being curious and generous. Would you agree, my friends? I agree. What I'd really love is for those of you who are listening or watching, we'd love to hear from some of you. What have you heard around the fire? You can drop it in the comments. Let us know the conversations that you've heard. And hopefully we'll be able to use those in future conversations that we have too.